In this video, we'll be seeing a total authentication flow using the MERN stack. So we'll be using React and Node.js for this, and for database we'll be using MongoDB. And so let's get started. So before even getting started, we have to actually create a MongoDB account. So we can create that using Atlas. So this is an online service where it gives a small amount of storage in the free tier section, so that you can use it for personal purposes. If you want, you can upgrade this using real money. Let's start by creating a project. Let's give our project name as a MERN auth, and click on next, and you can go on creating the project. So now we can build our first cluster here. So cluster is nothing but, you can think of it as a database. So let's go with the free one. So try to pick up something that's near you. I would choose Mumbai. So let's create the cluster. So as it is being created, let's go and create our application and set up the application so that we can connect MongoDB. So right now this is an empty folder. What I would like to do is I would like to do npm init-y so that it creates a package.json for me. And after that I would install Express, JSON web token, and body parser, node-mon as well. And I'll open another tab and I will do create React app and client. So this would create a client folder inside which the React project goes, and this will be installing our you can think of this as Node.js modules. So this creates one package.json, and at this it creates another package.json. So this is installed, so we can see that there is one package.json here, and we can create one index.js as well, and we can put in our boilerplate there. So we want to start with, let's say, Express. Let's require that, and let's create an instance of Express and store it in variable called app. And I want the port to be running at, let's say, 4000, because the React port will be running at 3000, and if you want to make any request to the backend application, you have to make to this port called 4000. So let's listen to that port. So app.listen, let's listen to that port, and for the callback, let's say console.log server at port, and let's use some middleware here. Let's say app.use body parser .json. So actually we have to import body parser for this. Let's import body parser is equals to require body dash parser. And right now we don't need JSON web token, so let's ignore that for now. And we need also let's say MongoDB, so we need Mongoose for that. So let's install Mongoose also. Let's see if this app is running or not. Yeah, it's running, so we can go and install Mongoose. So Mongoose is actually a driver for MongoDB, so you can make queries and other stuff like that using Mongoose without directly using MongoDB. You can just use this driver. This is installed, so we can go and require that as well. So let's go in and let's say const mongoose equals to require mongoose, say db.js. So what this will contain is that it will just export a URL, and it will also export a secret. So you can just say module.exports is equals to, and this would take an URL which will be given by the Atlas, and it also takes the secret. You can say mon1234. So let's go and find out what the URL is. So if I click on connect, so let's allow access from anywhere, and let's give a username and password. So I'm giving test, and the password is, let's say, test1234. So I'm creating a database user, so we can use this user to make queries for MongoDB. we can connect our application using Mongoose. So we can select the second one, which is connect to application. So we can just select that, and we have this. We can just copy this from here. So as I said, this is our URL. So let's paste it here. So this is it. So this test is a user we just created, and the password we created was test@test1234. So I think that should do. So this will actually export the URL and secret from db.js. So we can import that in index.js by just saying const, let's say db, or we can say URL is equals to require in the current directory, go to db.js, and what I can do is, first thing I want to do is mongoose.set, let's say use find and modify to be false. So this is just to avoid some warnings from Mongoose. This is to connect the database. So let's say mongoose.connect. So I want to connect to that. So first option is new URL parser, which is set to true. Use unified topology, which is set to true as well. This is actually use new, and it would give me a promise. So I would say .then what it gives me is it gives me a callback. So I would say console.log. If it all goes well, we can just say MongoDB connector, and if some error happens, it will catch that using .catch, and it will throw an error at us. So you can say console.log error, and you can save that. So what we are doing is that we are just connecting to the URL, connecting to Mongoose using the URL, and then we are console.logging MongoDB connected if all goes well, or else we get an error object back and we are just logging the error object. So that's what we are doing. So let's see if this actually works. Let's say node index.js. Okay, it's saying Mongoose is not defined. I think we forgot to include Mongoose here. Yeah, we have to require Mongoose first. So let's save that. Let's say node mon, which is now it restarts on okay, it's saying that MongoDB is connected, so we have successfully connected to our database, and we can make any queries from now on to that database itself. So that's one step, and here we have our React app installed. So you can see that here you can go into client and see that we have a whole new package here. So what I want to do is I want to do npm start here, so that it starts as new server at the port. So in the meanwhile, we will also create another file. Let's say touch auth.js. So while this is loading, we can go and create our own model. So model is something like a table in MySQL. MongoDB we have models. So what we have to do is we can just say user model.js, which is a new file. So let's open that file. So of course this is related to MongoDB, so we'll be using Mongoose for that. So we need that first. So let's require Mongoose, and Mongoose has something called schema. So we'll be importing that as well. So let's say schema is equals to mongoose.schema. So what this does is that it gives us a variable schema with which we can use to create new models. Say this is user model, which is new schema, and this schema takes an object which is a model itself, and for each object inside this object we have, like, let's say our user has a name which is of type string, and he also has let's say a password which is of type string as well. So let's say username here. So this is the only thing we'll be having to keep things simple. And so now what we need to do is we need to export this user model from this Mongo. So what we can say is module dot exports is equals to user model, which is equals to mongoose dot model, let's say user, which refers to the user model. So that's it, we have created a new model. This would be created, and now we can actually import this model and insert information into this model using this model. And this, whenever you import this model, it expects an username and also a password. Go back and let's go into auth.js and let's import express first, and also let's import router. Let's say express dot router, and module dot exports is equals to router. So now let's create a slash root. Let's say request and response. Actually, more than slash root, let's say it's a sign up root. So we are going to sign up. A user will be signing up here. Right, we are going to store this user in database, so we'll be needing that user model we just created. So let's use that. Let's say user model is equals to require / user model.js, and now we can use that. This username is going to be unique. So what we will be doing is that we'll be checking if already an user with that username exists, or else we'll be creating a new user, and this is actually going to be a post route. And in this post route we expect two arguments, which is username and the password in the request.body, right? And now what we'll be doing is that we just add a small validation here. If there is no username or if there is no password, then we will just return res.json, let's say with a message invalid credentials. Or else if there is enough body, we can create a new user. We have to actually check if the user is existing or not. So let's say const user exists is equals to await user model dot find one with the username as the given username. So if the user exists, then we can immediately return res.json, let's say a message user already exists. Else we can go in here and create the new user. Now what we can say is that we can say we can just say const new user is equals to, or we can say new user model of username and password, and we'll create we'll just send the response saying user created, right? So to use this route, okay, there's some error. I think we have to use await here, async in order to use await. So in order to use this route, we have to include that in index.js. We have to use that. So let's say app.use /auth, then go to, and we'll require .auth.js. As you can say const new user is equals to new user model. So I think we can actually send the new user back. Let's see what happens. So we are using that. So let's see what's happening in the client side. So right now there is just this home page which is running, and it is quite static. So what I want to do is I want to have a sign up form and also a login form, and if the user wants to sign up, then he would be giving an username and password, or if you want to log in, you'll be giving the username and password as well. And let's see if that goes well or not. So let's cd into client and list. So I want to remove all this header things, and I want to have just let's say a form. which has a input box of type text with a placeholder saying username, and I'll just copy that, and this time it would be password, and the placeholder would be password. And I would be also having a button here which says sign up. So for now let's be sign up. Let's begin to log in after finishing this. So I want a new line here. So let's see that. So if you can see this, let's go to app.css and remove existing CSS, or we can just remove the CSS here. I removed the CSS and we should see, yeah, I just want a bit of margin there for this class app. So let's say margin will be 20 pixel. Yeah, that works. So now to make third-party, to make API calls to backend, we can use fetch or we can use Axios. In this case, I'll be using Axios. So we can install that. Let's go back and let's say npm install Axios. So Axios is installed, so we can go and go into src folder, and we can do vim app.js. And now when we are going to use hooks here. If you are familiar with hooks, I think you must have heard of useState, which we will be importing from React. So we'll be creating a state here, which is, let's say, user data, and set user data, and I will say useState and initiate with an empty object. And whenever there is some change in this form, then I want to say on change is equals to a function. I want to trigger a function, let's say handle change, which I haven't created. So let's create that function, so that you can say handle change, takes an event as a parameter, and let's see what this event is carrying. So before that, we will also give names to this input so as to track them. So let's say username. So we need to have this name, because if we want to store them in this states, we have to have this name so that we can map them easily. I think you will understand when we implement that. So name is password. No need of name for button, but this button should be of type submit. We are submitting a form, so it must be of type submit. So yeah, let's go back here, open the console and see what's going on. So you can see that event is coming up. So actually we need event e.target. So let's say e.target, and let's again test this. You can see that I'm getting that this input field. So I can just say e.target.value to get the value of this input. But what I want to do is I want to set user data, and I want to say keep the old data, and also create a new data for this. Let's say e.target.name, and the value should be e.target.value. So now let's console.log user data instead of this. Let's see if that's updating or not. So let's see, and you can see that the username is coming up, and when we type the password is also coming up. So that's all we need, and now we can send this user data to the backend when we click this submit button. And here you can have any number of fields, or if you are handling with forms, you can have any number of fields here, and just you can use this one state to track them all. So what this means is that for the given name. As I said, we are using the name here, so it will use that name here. If we are changing this input box, then this name will be used as an key here, and the value would be the value we enter here in this input. So that's why I said we will be needing the name. So now that we have got the data we need, we can just submit them. So before that, I need to import Axios from Axios, and when here I can say on submit, and I want to say handle submit. So that's another function. Let's create that. So let's say handle submit, and this takes event as a parameter. So when I submit, what generally happens is that the page reloads immediately. So to prevent that, I can say e.prevent default. I don't want the page to reload, so we can say e.prevent default, and then we can do whatever we need here. So now what I'm going to make is a post request, because if you have seen the backend part here, this is a post request, so that would be expecting a post request. So I can say const let's say response is equals to await axios dot post, the route which we are doing. So right now it's http localhost, the port is 4000, so 4000 slash auth slash, and this is slash signup. And after that we'll be needing the data. So data is let's say user data. So that's it. So let's see if that's hitting the our backend or not. So first here you can just console.log request.body, what's coming from the body. So let's go to this and just okay, I think there's some error, which is that we are using await here, but we haven't used async keyword. So let's use that. So let's type some username and type some password and click on submit. So it's giving us some error. Let's see. This must be a capital S, because that's how we define a string. And restart the server. We should not give to a constant variable. Okay, so yeah, it's connected. So let's go and make another request here. So it's not reaching the backend, because it's saying that CORS policy is this request has been blocked by CORS policy. So what we can do is we can go to our backend. We can open index.js. Before that, let's install a module called course, so that any other request will be allowed to a backend. So let's install course, and now let's go into index.js and then just require that. Let's say const course equals require course, and it's just simple. You can say app.use course. That's it. So we can again send and try to send, and this time I think we are now we are getting the data. We can see that we are console.logging the data request.body, and request.body does not have username and password immediately, but it has data also. So what we need is let's open the auth.js, and we need to destructure this from request.body.data, because in the front end we are sending this as data here. So let's console.log the response dot data, and you can see the message is the user has been created, and a new user has a password, has a username, and also you can see that there is an ID which we have not given. This is automatically given by MongoDB. This is an unique ID for this particular user. Like it's like a primary key for in an MySQL table. So if you try to create again, the user must not be created. but let's see what's happening there. The thing is that you have to save an user before, if you want to save that to DB. So we have created a new user here, right? We created a new model and we stored that in a variable. So we have to do that variable, which is new user dot save, in order to save that user. So yeah, that's the mistake I have done. So let's again let's restart the server, and then let's actually give an another time test user. Okay, now the user is created, and the second time when I click on sign up, the user already exists, so that works. So that's what we need. So now the sign up is finished. But when you are doing this in production, please do not store the new user's password in a plain text form. Do use some techniques like hashing or something. There are many libraries available. So I'm just trying not to make it too complex. I just want to show how your authentication using JWT works in Mon. You can just create a button here, another button here, which is also type submit, but it says login. So now I want to create two different functions. Like for sign up, I want to do this handle submit. I can say rename it to handle sign up, and for login I want to do handle login. So what I want to do is, instead of doing on submit here, I will remove that, and I will say on click to this, I will say handle sign up, and on click to this I will say handle login. So these are two different functions, and I'll rename this to handle sign up, and I'll create another function named handle login, which is also a function, and we'll do the same e.prevent default. And now what we want to do is that when an user is going to log in, then we'll be needing to send the username and password, right? So we can do the same thing. So instead of /sign up, we can do /login. That has not been created yet, but yeah, it will be created in a moment. So the front end is ready to send request, but the backend we need another route. Let's say router.post. I have to create the /log. Let's say async request and response. And in a similar way, we'll be getting username and password from request.body.data. We can use this request data to log in the user. So before that, we have to know if the user is valid or not, if the user really exists and the password is true or not. So what I want to do is, so similarly I will copy this validation here, and if all data is valid which is being sent from the client, then I will say const user is equals to await user model dot find one with the same username and username. So if the user really exists, then we actually tried to log the user exists before. So let's see what it has. You can see that it has an ID, a username and password, so we can take that directly. So if the user is present, and if the user dot password is equals to the password which is being sent, then we can log in the user. Else we can just say, or we can just send here message as, we can say incorrect, you can say password. And if the user itself does not exist, you can just say rest.json, and the message would be incorrect credentials. So we have figured out other things. The only thing we need to figure is what happens if the user is valid and the password is password is also valid. So what we now is the time when we need the JSON web tokens. So let's import JWT, or let's say, yeah, we can say JWT is equals to require JSON web token. So we need to create a token. So every token has some payload data, which means that like a token is a long string, and when you decode that string you get the user's data or any data you put into it. So the data we are putting into it is called as payload. So let's create the payload here. The payload is just going to be the username and the password. There's no need of password as well. We can just say the payload has the username, because we don't want the password to be stored in a token, because this token is going to be stored in the browser, right? So we don't want the password to be stored here. So now what we can do is we can say JWT dot sign. I want to sign this payload. You can have some secret variable, let's say secret for now, and then it takes an object which is expires in. So we need to give how much time this token is going to be valid for. Let's say 1 day, which means we can give it as 1D, which means 1 day. And the next one is going to be a callback with error and token. So if there is some error, let's just log that error. Else, if there is no error, then I want to set a cookie in the browser. To do that, I can just do res.cookie. The name of that cookie is going to be JWT, and the value is going to be token. And this token is coming from here. This is the value of the token. So this token is the token which is going to be a long string. And res.cookie, all it does is that it creates a cookie in the browser. So we'll be seeing that also. And just we can return res.json. You can send a message, user logged in. Of res.cookie, what you can do is you can just send the token to the browser back. Let's say token is token, and just remove this. So now we are not setting any cookie, but we are sending the token back to the user. And here the client side will receive the token here. You can say response.data.token. That's the token we'll be getting. And we can set the cookie using some third-party variable module. You can set the cookie which we are receiving from the backend. To that, we need to install a module called JS cookie. You can this is used to set and get cookies. You can also remove cookie if you want. So you can it all deals with cookies with the browser. Let's try again. So you can see that we are getting this long string back. We can set this as a token, and this, if you copy this and go to jwt.io, that's the official website of JSON Web Token. So let's paste our token here. So copy that and paste, and you can see that we are getting the test user, which is a username which we stored in the payload, and it automatically adds 2 fields to just track when the token was created and when the token is going to expire. Right, so yeah, that's how it works. So we now will be storing this token in a cookie, and let's import cookie from js-cookie, and here instead of console.log we will just say cookie dot set JWT is the name of the cookie, and response.data.token is the value of that cookie. And I will only set this if there is a token coming from the backend, or else I don't want to set. Right, so let's go and see if this is working or not. Let's open application and cookies. So you can see that a new cookie has been created named JWT, and its value is the token's value. So this, now we are officially like logged in, and we can use this cookie to send along with the request as an header, you might say, to authenticate like protected routes. So now what we want to do is I want to make a protected a root kind of thing. Like I want to have this, let's say root.get/protected, and that is an async request, a response, and this must say let's say return rest.json message, this is a protected route. So this is just a small example, but this might be any protected route. So right now if you hit this route, it will directly give you this response saying that this is a protected route, but I don't want that to happen. I only want authenticated users to create, hit this route. So what I want to do for that is that I want to create a middleware. So middleware is something that before reaching the inside part of this router.get or anything inside this, it will check if the user is present or not, and then if the user is really valid, then what it will do is it will allow that request to pass through this, or else it will just return a response right there. So what we need to do for that is that we need to create a function. So let's say you can create it here itself, but usually keep that in a different file. So let's say isAuthenticated, and this function will take two parameters and an extra one, let's say next, and also what that does. We normally get request and response, and the middleware also gets request and response as a parameter. So this actually gets this route actually gets the next as a parameter, but we don't use that because right now we don't need that, right? So but in this middleware, the next function is very important function. As I said, if the user is valid, then it will allow that request to pass through into this route, right? So to allow that route, we need to call this next function, or else we don't need to call that. So that's how it goes. We have this isAuthenticated route, and let's go into the client side and let's create another. Let's say it is an button as well. Let's say access protected API, and this button on click, let's say it says handle protected. So we haven't created handle protected yet, so let's create that here. Say handle protected. So what this does is that this sends an let's say response. This sends an API request to the /protected route. Await axios dot. This time it's a get, so we can just do get. So it's localhost 4000/AP auth/ what was that? It was protected. Let's create options. So we can create headers. One of the header is going to be authorization, and this is going to be bearer, and then the token, which is, you can say, cookie.get JWT. So you put that headers in the response. You send the headers in the response like this. Let's send the request now, and you can see that we have an authorization header coming up, which is bearer, and the token itself, the whole token. So let's use that header. If you do request.headers.authorization like this, then we will be getting the the header we need. So we can use that actually here, not in the router, because we want to know if the user is really authenticated. So let's say const let's say header is equals to request.headers.authorization. So usually what you would be needing is, like, you would be checking if the header is present or not, and then some other checks like that, but I think that's not needed. You can just do .split at the space, and you can console.log header. Let's see how it goes. Let's remove this. So we are not calling this function anywhere, right? This authentication is authenticated middleware, we are not calling anywhere. So to call that, you can just call it before this callback. So you can say is authenticated, and then put a comma, and then this callback. So as you see, the order, it hits the /protected route, then it hits the function. If it allows, then it goes to the callback function. So that's the flow, how it's going to be. So right now you can see that we are not using this next function, so we won't be receiving a response back, like we won't be hitting this inside this route. So that's okay for now. We just want to see what the header is going to sending us. And you can see that it is an array. The first element is bearer, second element is token. So what I want to do is I want to split it using of1, because the 0th element is the name bearer. So we got the header here. So before that I want to check if request.headers.authorization, then, or else it would be giving me an error like can't do split on undefined value. So I just want to make sure that. And now we have the token, so let's rename it as token because that's a token value. And I can use this JWT function to, JWT module to verify if this token is valid or not. So I can say JWT.verify the token, and the secret string which we gave here, we should also give that. So the callback would be error and the user. And let's console.log user. So let's see what it's actually sending us. So right now we have a cookie in the browser. So if we send the request, that should give us a user back. So let's send the request, and you can see that I'm having a user and the object is like this, which I have exactly seen in that website when we pasted the token. So what I want to do is that if there is no user, then I want to return res.json with a message user not authenticated, or else I just want to do next. I just want to call this function next. So that's it. You can just it will just pass on to the next function thinking that there is a user, so we can just go. If there is no user, it would not even send an empty object, it will return a null. So that's so the if condition would be working here. So let's try this, and in the client side let's console.log the response.data after clicking that handle protected route function. So let's go to console, clear this, and then let's access. When we access this, now it says that this is a protected route, right? So let's clear the token out. So let's remove all tokens, and then now let's again access the protected API, and you can see that our user is not authenticated. So you can log in again, and then you can access the protected route. So this is how you access protected routes in React and Node.js using JWTs. So right now we are using this JWT. So yeah, that's it for this video. If you have any doubts, do contact me, and I have a request website where you can ask your opinions on your videos, or you can share your ideas for my next video. So yeah, thank you for watching.